Welcome to Saints Take 5, a true crime commentary channel. So if you follow true crime cases and you're looking for a place to hang out and continue the conversation about cases you're probably already familiar with, then this might be the place for you. Hit the subscribe button to increase the likelihood of my videos showing up on your homepage, and if you hit the bell in addition to the subscribe button, you'll be notified every time I upload a video. Welcome to part 3 of my Sylvia Lwowski series. I'm going to do a quick recap for you guys. So around 1 p.m. on Saturday, September 6, 1975, Sylvia Lwowski, age 22, of Staten Island, New York, went shopping at the Staten Island Mall with her best friend, Lauren. Around 4 p.m., Lauren drove Sylvia back to Sylvia's home that she shared with her parents, Joe and Eva, and her 16-year-old brother, Anthony, to prepare for her date with her fiancé, Frank. Then Lauren went back to her home, where she also resided with her parents. Around 6:30 p.m., Frank arrived at Sylvia's house, and they went to the movies at Island Theater on Richmond Avenue. Around 10:30 p.m., Lauren was at her house sitting on her front porch with some friends when Frank's car pulled up. Frank was alone and visibly angry. He told Lauren that he and Sylvia had gotten in a fight after the movie, and Sylvia exited the vehicle and said she was going to catch a bus home. He asked Lauren if she could go pick Sylvia up, and he drove off. Lauren and her father drove around the area where Sylvia was last seen, checking all the bus stops, the storefronts, and the payphone areas, without any sight of her. They assumed she had already boarded a bus, and they had just missed her, so they went home. Around 11:30 to midnight, Lauren called Sylvia's house, and Miss Eva told Lauren that Sylvia was not home yet. Lauren asked Miss Eva to tell Sylvia to call her when she gets in, no matter how late, because she had something private and important to tell her, hoping that Miss Eva would forgive her late-night call. But Lauren soon fell asleep, assuming Sylvia probably didn't want to talk about whatever happened after the date with Frank. Frank had gone to Sylvia's house after he had been at Lauren's, and while we don't know much about what he said to Sylvia's family, it was similar to what he told Lauren. He and Sylvia got in a fight after the movie. Sylvia threw her eyeglasses at the dashboard in a fit of rage, and then she ran from the car. Miss Eva called police, but since Sylvia was an adult, they urged her to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. Then Miss Eva drove around looking for her daughter. Around 4 to 6 a.m., Miss Eva called Lauren's house demanding to know what was going on and where is Sylvia. Lauren told her about Frank's visit and requested to pick Sylvia up. Miss Eva filed a police report in person later that day. It's been 50 years, and Sylvia Lwowski is still missing. You Lord, oh Lord, you Lord, for Sunday. 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 Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of information on this case, and there isn't much information on the date that Sylvia went on with Frank. So a lot of this is kind of speculation, but I wanted to take a minute to talk about the movie. So in part 2 of my Sylvia video, we learned that Frank said, "We got into a fight after the movie." Apparently, this was the first time Lauren or Sylvia's family was hearing that their date was to see a movie, since Sylvia didn't mention it to anyone. And like I said earlier, it's possible that Sylvia was unaware because it was a plan that Frank might have made to surprise her. But I want to take a minute to talk about this movie date, though, because I have a lot of questions. Movie theaters have changed drastically over the years. Today, theaters are like giant warehouses with 10 or more viewing rooms inside of them. Each screen is showing a different movie, and each movie is about 2 or 3 hours long, and they seemingly play continuously throughout the day with tons of running times to choose from. Back in the day, though, movie theaters consisted of 1 or 2 rooms, so only 1 or 2 movies were showing at a time, and they only played them once, twice, or 3 times a day if you were lucky. And today we can purchase tickets online, but back then you had to physically go to the ticket window to buy them. And if a movie was extremely popular, you could expect to wait in a really long line only to find out that they've sold out of tickets for the entire day or even days ahead. When Sylvia went missing, the Island Theater was a 2-room theater. A children's movie was playing on one side, and Jaws was playing on the other. Now, Jaws was a hugely successful movie. It was #1 for like 10 weeks or more, something crazy. Everyone in town wanted to see it, everyone was talking about it. Tickets sold out fast. The parking lot was packed, lines wrapped around the building, and you were likely to bump into someone you know. I have so many questions about this movie, and because this wasn't really even a case, there wasn't even really an investigation. So my first question is any of what I'm saying even true? There's no way to really verify anything if it wasn't a case. Did they go to the Island Theater? And did they watch Jaws? We're not even sure. And were the police ever able to verify that? Did they even try? Was there any attempt to retrieve receipts or ticket stubs? Did anyone witness Sylvia and Frank at the theater? Did police ask Frank to tell them what the movie was about or what the environment was like? Where did they park? What did they eat? When did he purchase the tickets? Was it that day or days ahead? What time did the movie start and end? What seats did they sit in? And what in the world could you have possibly fought about after seeing Jaws? Whether he was a great white or a tiger shark? I mean, couples have been known to fight about these things. Or was it the actors in bathing suits that triggered a fight? Was Sylvia talking to another man while Frank bought tickets? I mean, we don't know. I also have questions about the fight in the car. I noticed that everything is she threw her glasses and she ran off and she said she'd get a bus. But what did Frank say and do during this argument? He just sat there quietly while she raged. So she was the one so furious that she threw, possibly broke, and then abandoned her eyes, her glasses, because she was mad at him. She was so livid that she couldn't calm down long enough to just let him drive her home. She ran, refused to get back in the car, and opted to take a bus instead of riding home with her fiancé. I may be biased, but I'm over here wondering, what did he do? Because this behavior makes me think he was the one in the wrong and she wants to get away from him. It also makes me wonder if he was exhibiting some kind of dangerous behavior. And did her glasses break? Was she concerned about the cost and the time to replace them? What did he do after she exited the car? How did he lose her? Did she have money for the bus? And were buses even running at that time? If she was going to get a bus, then why drive to Lauren's house and interrupt her late at night and ask her to pick Sylvia up? Doesn't she already have a ride? The bus? And where was the closest drop-off stop to Sylvia's house? I mean, when she got off the bus, how long would Sylvia have to walk from the stop to her house alone at night? It also makes me wonder, were they drinking alcohol? My questions are endless. For several weeks after Sylvia's disappearance, Miss Eva and Lauren remained in regular contact, checking in with each other to see if they had heard anything from Sylvia. Unfortunately, the answer was always no. The police had been questioning Frank, and when Miss Eva called him, he was so rude to her that she avoided calling him altogether. I think he even told her not to call again and that the police were handling it. Lauren also tried talking to Frank, but it always ended badly. He would get extremely hostile, yelling and cursing at her. Even Frank's mother would be yelling in the background, telling her to never call again. One time when Lauren called, Frank was furious and said something like, "She made a sucker out of me. I bought her an expensive ring and she walked off with it," or something to that effect. A few months later, Sylvia's very loved elderly poodle named Fifi passed away, and this obviously would have been big important news to Sylvia. So Lauren reached out to Frank to inform him in case Sylvia ever contacted him and he could tell her. As soon as Lauren tried to speak, Frank went into another angry, cursing rant and didn't even let her finish what she was saying. Over the years, even Anthony has tried to talk to Frank. He asked police if he could ask Frank some questions, but the police alluded to that being harassment. It's been 50 years, 5 decades, half a century. Let me ask you guys something. Do you think if I asked you 10 questions a year, would that be too much for you? Let's say one day a year. Let's say in the month of June, one day in June, a year. I get to ask you 10 questions. Is that too much? If the Lwowskis had asked 10 questions a year for every year Sylvia has been missing, they would have 500 questions answered by now. I would hardly call that harassment. Now, this is just something to think about randomly, but do you guys remember how angry the public got when they found out that Brian Laundrie's parents refused to talk to Gabby Petito's parents? People argued that the Laundries' silence was torture to the Petito family. So I can see it either way. If it's harassment for the Lwowskis to ask questions, then it's abuse and torture to ignore them, in my opinion. I can understand being mad in 1975, but 50 years later? No. I'm just stunned by the way this man treated Sylvia's friends and family. But we don't know Frank's side of the story, though, and to my knowledge, he's never participated in any media efforts. Not that there has been much media on this situation. So the years passed, and no word from Sylvia. Lauren and David married. Miss Eva attended the event, and Sylvia was absent. She certainly would have been Lauren's maid of honor had she resurfaced. And Miss Eva still had unopened engagement gifts sitting around their house waiting for Sylvia to open them. There had been no sightings, no communication, and no activity in government paperwork. The Lwowskis called every transportation hub, hospital, and prison in America. They called everywhere, with no trace of her. It was as if she had vanished, but we all know that's not how it happens. As far as I know, Frank never had a single question for anyone else. It seems he never tried to reach out to ask if anyone had heard from Sylvia. I haven't heard of him visiting Miss Eva to ask if she's okay, how's she doing, or him coming over with a box of things Sylvia left at his house after their almost 2-year-long relationship. I wonder what was it like for him? Was he ever confused as to how he should act or what he should do? Was he waiting for his fiancé to come back? What if she showed up after being held captive by some serial killer, assuming she was still on her way to the altar? Thinking she could just pick up a relationship with Frank where she left off? I just have so many questions. Somewhere between 1979 and 1984, so about 4 to 8 years after Sylvia's disappearance, Lauren was busy adulting, working a great job with a company vehicle. While she was getting ready to leave work for the day, she offered to take a coworker home since he lived in the same general area that she did. She didn't know the coworker very well, so they got to know each other better on the drive home. At one point, the coworker asked, "What high school did you go to?" And of course, after Lauren told him what high school she went to, and he told her what school he went to, the questions started flying. Do you know so-and-so? How about so-and-so? Do you know so-and-so? It was one of those conversations where you want to see if you know the same people and describe your relationship with them and share special memories of them and provide where are they now kind of updates. So the coworker asked, "Do you know so-and-so?" which happened to be a female friend of Lauren's. So she said, "Yes, she's a good friend of mine." And the coworker revealed that that was his cousin. And he asked, "How good? Like best friends?" And Lauren said, "Not best friends, but a good friend." And then Lauren got quieter and added, "My best friend is Sylvia, but she's missing." And of course, he had questions about this missing best friend. So Lauren told him a little about the situation and how she disappeared several years ago after a fight with her fiancé. To Lauren's total surprise, the coworker asked, Frank Smith? Was that her fiancé?" The coworker knew Frank. Lauren grew concerned and kind of regretted saying anything about it. She wasn't expecting him to know Frank. She let her guard down and confided something painful and personal to a virtual stranger, thinking it was no big deal. But now she kind of wanted to kick herself. She had to remind herself to be careful who she talks to. Then the coworker went on to say some truly shocking things. So remember I told you guys that Frank was a musician that played in a band? Well, the coworker's brother was in the same band with Frank. They played all kinds of events, including weddings, so maybe that's how the subject came up. But the coworker said that his brother told him that Frank still had Sylvia's engagement ring in his possession. Lauren was stunned. Why would Frank have Sylvia's engagement ring? Now, recall the hostile telephone conversation Lauren had with Frank a few years before, where he said something like, "She made a sucker out of me. I got her an expensive ring and she walked off with it." Let me repeat that. She walked off with it. The police report list of what Sylvia was wearing when she disappeared also included her engagement ring. Miss Eva filed the report, so she was obviously under the impression that Sylvia was wearing the ring when she walked off. That indicates that when Frank came to Sylvia's house to tell the family that she was missing, Frank either specifically told Miss Eva she was wearing the ring, or Frank specifically chose not to mention that he had the ring. But why not mention it? Why does he have it? Let me guess. Sylvia was just throwing all of her most expensive, fragile accessories around that night. Mayhem, just flying objects everywhere. But let's just chill out for a minute here, because we don't know if this story is even true. What if the coworker is mistaken, possibly confusing Sylvia's story with something else? Or maybe it was a different member of the band with his fiancé's ring. Or maybe the diamond ring Frank had was something he bought for an ex-girlfriend or a new girlfriend, not Sylvia. We just don't have enough details. I have questions, though. How did the conversation come up with the coworker and his brother? Did his brother rush home after a gig late one night and say, "Hey, don't tell anybody, but Frank has Sylvia's ring"? And how did it come about that Frank's bandmates saw this ring? Were they just hanging out at Frank's house and someone asked, "Hey, why do you have a ring box in your underwear drawer?" Or did Frank pull it out and show everyone and tell the mysterious story of how the love of his life vanished? I have no idea. I don't know if these people have ever been interviewed. Now that I think about it, I don't remember what Lauren did with this information. Did she tell Miss Eva? Did she tell the police? Wait, if I remember correctly, Lauren was never interviewed by police until a cold case department or organization reached out to her in 2010. I think she told Miss Eva, and then I think she mentioned it in 2010 to the cold case officers. So, about 30 years later. Shortly after Sylvia's disappearance, the Lwowskis briefly hired a private investigator. This was obviously something Miss Eva and Mr. Joe would know a lot about, but unfortunately both of them have passed away, without leaving much information behind for Anthony, who is now the one heading the search for his beloved big sister. Lauren discovered that she was one of the people being followed by the PI. And that, combined with certain things Miss Eva said, gave Lauren the impression that Miss Eva was secretly suspecting Lauren knew more about Sylvia's disappearance than she was admitting. It's hard to describe, but I'll try. Miss Eva would call Lauren to say seemingly random things, and Lauren would think, why would she call to tell me that? I mean, that seems just kind of mundane, you know? But then Lauren realized that the things that Miss Eva talked about would have been a big deal to Sylvia. So Lauren started to think that Miss Eva was using a tactic to pass messages to Lauren in hopes that Lauren would tell Sylvia, and the information would entice Sylvia out of hiding. Now, this is something that I made up to try to explain it better to you, but for example, it would be like Miss Eva calling Lauren to say, "Oh, I made my famous chocolate cake today, and I don't know what I did with the recipe, but I ended up with 4 cakes. So now I have these cakes that smell delicious and look delicious, and I just don't know what to do with them." And, she would go on and on about these cakes for the whole phone call. And then Lauren would hang up the phone and kind of sit there like, that was weird. Why did she call me about the chocolate cakes? Like, Miss Eva knows me and my whole family are allergic to chocolate cake. Why would she call me about that? And then when Lauren would sit and think about it, she'd be like, wait a minute. That was Sylvia's absolute favorite cake. I remember when we were kids, Sylvia would be at my house and she would call in to check in with her parents. And Miss Eva would say, "Oh, I made some of your favorite chocolate cake." And man, after that, Sylvia hung up the phone and she raced home to get some of her chocolate cake. And then that's when it would dawn on Lauren that Miss Eva was like trying to entice Sylvia out of hiding. So there had to be some part of Miss Eva that was thinking that maybe Lauren was hiding Sylvia or knew where Sylvia was living and just didn't tell Miss Eva about it. It's just heartbreaking to think about, but at the same time, it's also heartwarming because you just see Miss Eva trying to do the thing that mommies do, when your kids are playing hide and seek and they won't come out and you say something like, "Well, I was really hungry and I was going to order a pizza, but if I have nobody to eat it with, then I guess I won't," and then all the kids come out of their hiding spots to say, "Pizza, here we are, Mom, let's order pizza," which I think is so cute, but, you know. But anyway, I'm sure it did cross Miss Eva's mind that Lauren was hiding her or covering for her. The girls were best friends. But I wonder, could there have been other reasons for Miss Eva thinking Lauren knew more? Initially, I just thought Miss Eva was maybe suspicious of Lauren because best friends keep each other's secrets, and Sylvia was known to find refuge at Lauren's house when she was upset. That's normal for a mother to think that maybe their daughter is hiding out at their best friend's house. Then I thought about Lauren's late night call asking Miss Eva if she could have Sylvia call her when she gets in, because of a private important matter. That would certainly pique Miss Eva's interest. But then when I learned that it was possible that Frank had already been to the Lwowski home before Lauren's call, then I thought, wait a minute. Miss Eva was probably thinking, why are you asking for my daughter? She's supposed to be with you, Lauren. If someone were to ask me who was the last person to see or be with Sylvia, I'd say her fiancé Frank, duh. Everyone that follows this case knows that. But did Miss Eva know that? Miss Eva doesn't know what to believe except for what these kids tell her. What did Frank tell the Lwowskis that night? Did he tell them that Lauren picked Sylvia up? Did he tell them that Sylvia was with Lauren? Because technically there was no way for him to know that. Could he have said things implicating that Lauren was involved in her disappearance? A person could interpret his recruitment of Lauren into the situation as a way to dump the responsibility on her, making her the last to be associated with Sylvia. So maybe that's why Miss Eva may have thought Lauren knew more than she was admitting. We'll never know. I think that one thing that Lauren has going for her is that she had some witnesses there with her that night. She had friends with her on the porch who could have witnessed Frank pull up and may have even heard what he said. Then when she went to pick Sylvia up, she had her father with her. So several people knew she wasn't with Sylvia that night. I would think that if Miss Eva had any thoughts of Lauren keeping Sylvia's location a secret, that those suspicions probably stopped on Lauren's wedding day when she saw Sylvia was not there. At first, I thought it was super weird that Frank went to Lauren's that night. But then again, is it weird? I mean, Frank picked Sylvia up for their movie date around 5:30 p.m. He said they got into the fight after the movie. So it's probably safe to say the movie was over by 7:30, assuming that they went straight to the movie. The argument could have lasted an hour or more, escalating into Sylvia exiting the vehicle and walking off. Even if it was a short argument, Frank could have been searching the area for hours, wondering where the heck she went. As it got later and darker, he could have been thinking that he should go to the Lwowski house and let them know what was going on, but probably felt uneasy about abandoning her there. So maybe by getting Lauren involved, Lauren could take over the search while he informed the Lwowskis. That way the search doesn't stop. I can see how that made sense to him. But then again, he could have just used one of the payphones to call the Lwowskis to tell them what happened and to meet him in the area. That way he doesn't have to leave. He doesn't have to get Lauren involved, and he can continue the search. Then when the Lwowskis arrive, they can assist in the search too. After all these years, it stuns me how little Sylvia's friends and family know about the night of her disappearance. When we combine what Anthony knows and what Lauren knows, we only get about 6 to 8 sentences about it. Frank is really the only person that knows what happened leading up to her disappearance, and he hasn't shared much information with them, or at least not much has been shared publicly. I noticed a slight difference in what Frank said to the Lwowskis and what Frank said to Lauren. If I remember correctly, he told Lauren that Sylvia walked off saying she was going to take a bus, and he told the Lwowskis that she walked off, and I don't think a bus was mentioned. She just walked off, and he couldn't find her. Maybe this explains why I sense a completely different vibe or energy from Frank versus Lauren. Frank's energy seems far more urgent, as if he knows this is a serious emergency or something, as if Sylvia has been gone for a while, and he's freaking out. He needs to get her best friend and her parents involved. There seems to be an urgency to find her, because she's missing. He seems to know that, but I don't know if that was clearly conveyed to Lauren, because if I say these two things to you, one, she walked off, or two, she walked off saying she'd get a bus, they give a completely different impression. Walked off kind of means she's out there, somewhere, anywhere, I don't know where, she's gone, she's missing. But walked off saying she'd take a bus makes you think, okay, well, even if I don't see her, I know she has intentions of getting the bus. So if I go and I can't find her, I'm going to assume she took the bus home, you know? Because the only sense of urgency that I was picking up from Lauren is the female need to nurture, the urgency to comfort her broken-hearted friend and spare her the public cry face on the bus. That's why Lauren and her father mainly checked the bus stops and payphones and surrounding area and then went home assuming she got the bus. The urgency was her emotional state, her broken heart, not her safety. It seems that Lauren and her father weren't thinking she's missing, where it seemed like Frank was. So there seems to be a communication failure there or something. Frank's anger and frustration from the argument and possibly hours of searching could have masked his worry and fear, because to Lauren he just looked angry, when deep down he could have been panicked. I might be mistaken. Perhaps Frank wasn't panicked and wasn't thinking she's gone. But if he wasn't, then why even go to the Lwowski house? He and Sylvia just got into a huge fight. They're both furious, and Sylvia's making it clear that she does not want to be around him. So why go there? To continue to fight at her house? He knows that she has not one, but two rides home. If one method fails, there's a backup. But he's kind of acting as if he doesn't trust that she's gonna make it home. He doesn't trust the bus, or he doesn't trust Lauren. He could always go back up there and take Miss Eva with him. And I wonder how long he waited at the Lwowskis. Maybe he just wanted to ensure her safe arrival, and he intended to apologize as soon as Sylvia walked in the door. If Frank couldn't find her, what made him think that Lauren would? Especially since Sylvia had no idea that Lauren was even coming. It was entirely Frank's idea to involve Lauren. Then I thought that maybe Frank's level of urgency meant that Sylvia had intentions of taking a bus off of Staten Island, like across state lines. But apparently, buses only ran to New York City during the daytime back then. And there was a ferry as well, but that too only ran during the day. Most of the buses on Staten Island stayed on Staten Island. But I haven't been able to confirm any of that, though. Those are just recollections from random locals online. In this part of my Sylvia Lwowski series, we learned what happened in the wake of Sylvia's disappearance, we raised a lot of questions that need further exploration, and we took a closer look at the behavior of those that were with her the day that she disappeared. Thank you for watching, and I hope you will join me for part 4, where we will discuss the location and some of the possible theories.